Hey, it's Nikki again, and it looks like you guys really enjoy the tutorials on the Disorderly Threads bags. And one that I've been getting a lot of requests for is the corset bag. And this is one of the first designs that came out from Disorderly Threads, and it's very popular. And I just love how unique it is. And one of the cool things about it is that you can use some really unusual fabrics with it. The one we'll be making today, I'm using it's like a thin vinyl type of fabric that I bought online from spandexhouse.com a couple years ago. And on a sewing machine, this would be really difficult to work with. And on an embroidery machine, super simple. The foot just glides right over it. So this project is great to use fabrics that you might be intimidated to sew with, and they just turn out great. So we'll get started. First of all, you're going to need a few supplies. You're going to need to hoop a piece of cutaway stabilizer. You will need the fabric that you choose for the corset, and then a fabric for whatever skin color you'd like. And then you want your zipper to match that color. And it needs to be at least 7 inches long. It can be more than that if you want, because you're just going to cut off the excess anyway. You will also need to have a lining fabric, and I've chosen a pink that's going to coordinate with the lacing detail on the corset. You'll need a piece of ribbon, maybe between 5/8 of an inch wide and an inch wide. It would be the best. And I'm using a grosgrain ribbon. And grosgrain just means it's got that rib texture to it. It's a really good sturdy ribbon to work with. Wears better than satin ribbon. You will also need some low loft batting, and low loft means thin. I'm using a polyester batting, but a lot of people prefer cotton batting, and I'm actually going to be trying that out in the near future to see if I like it better as well. And then for the zipper pull, which also comes with the design, you will need a piece of felt and a small piece of ribbon. This is 1/8 of an inch wide grosgrain ribbon. And this is a wool blend felt. And I find that wool blend felt wears a lot better than the acrylic felts that you get in most major craft stores. And they're not available locally, at least where I live, so I purchase them on sites like Etsy. A lot of sellers have them there. And of course, you're going to need your embroidery threads. The design calls for 3 different colors. I'm going to be using silver for the eyelets, this pink for the lace trim up here and the lacing, and then the side detail, I'm using a lighter pink. And also, it's good to have some type of blunt object like this. This is just a little bamboo dowel, and that's for turning the design right side out and making sure that the corners are poked out all the way. So let's get started. First, you want to load your design onto the machine, of course. And we're going to run our first stitch, which is going to be the placement lines for the zipper. I know a lot of people online that I've come across are intimidated by zippers, whether it be sewing or machine embroidery. And I have a lot of sewing experience, and I also was intimidated by zippers, but they're really not that bad. And they're cheap, so if it's a nice thing to practice on. Just, grab any old zipper. They're like $1.50 retail, and you can get them around 30 cents each online. So just give it a try. I mean, you don't have anything to lose. And with machine embroidery, a zipper placement is even easier than sewing. All right, so now that we've got that stitch done, we're going to remove our hoop from the machine. And we're going to take our zipper, and we're going to have the tab facing up and to the left. And we are going to center that zipper in the placement line, right in between the 2 lines. And we're going to center the zipper itself in the hoop. And you're just going to use some tape to secure that down. And you want to do that on a flat surface. I'm hopefully doing it in such a way where you can see it, which also isn't very ideal for making the tape stick here, but you get the idea. and you want to put some tape along the zipper tape. And there you go. Next, we are going to turn the hoop over. We're going to take our medium-sized lining piece, and the pattern does come with a PDF with very detailed instructions, and it has all the dimensions and everything you need to know to cut out everything and get the supplies you need and how to make it. So we're taking that piece of lining, we're lining it up with the lower placement line, and we are going to tape that in place. Then, this is something I started doing is to avoid this lining getting caught in our stitching down below, I started actually pinning this lining to the end of my stabilizer up here, so then there's no chance of it getting caught underneath the hoop and getting caught in the stitching. Then we are going to take one of our two skin-toned fabrics, and we are going to tape that on the front side of the hoop and along that lower edge of the zipper. And then we are ready to stitch our zipper down. Putting our hoop back on the machine and running our stitch. All right, next up, we are going to remove that tape from our hoop. And our next step is to take our medium-sized piece of batting, place that inside the hoop with the edge right against that seam we just stitched, and we're going to fold down that piece of fabric. And then we want to pin it down and have our pins right along the edge of the hoop so that there is no chance of our needle hitting it. You might find it's easier to take this out of the hoop in order to pin it, but I think I've got it okay just doing it from on the machine. Now our next step is going to be our placement stitch for our corset piece. It's going to show us where to lay that fabric. All right, we are going to take the smaller of the two corset fabric pieces. We're going to lay it in the hoop, and we're going to make sure that we completely cover that placement stitch that we just did. And then make sure that the bottom of the fabric goes to the bottom of the hoop. And next is the tack down. Alright, now we want to remove our hoop from the machine. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my pins. And a fabric like this is really tough to pin, and it leaves permanent holes as well. So I'm being very careful to make sure that my pins are at the very edge of the hoop so that I won't have permanent holes in my finished design, and my needle won't hit those pins and damage the machine or potentially my face. Neither one of those is good. Next, we will need to trim off the fabric that is above that stitching line right there. And we want to trim it as close as possible. All right, and there we have it. We're ready to put it back on the machine. And our next stitch is going to be the eyelets down the front of the corset. I like to stop the machine and just trim off this little thread end before we continue. And there we go. So we've got all of the eyelets stitched, and I've cut all the jump stitches, and I have also changed to the next color thread, which is going to be stitching some lines down the sides here and up top. We're returning our hoop to the machine and letting it stitch. Alright, so those stitches are complete. I have changed my thread to the darker shade of pink that I chose, and the next step is going to be the lace trim at the top edge of the corset and the laces. So we have completed this stitching, and now before we go on to the next stitch, we need to do a couple things. First, we need to turn our hoop over and fold down our lining piece, and then pin or tape it in place. I'm going to tape it. Now we're going to, on the front side, put our other piece of skin colored fabric so it is even with that zipper tape and placement line. And we're going to tape that down. Just like that. Flip our hoop back over, take the lining piece of the same size, and tape that in the same position. The edge lined up with that placement stitch for the zipper, and tape it just like that. Okay, then we're going to put this back on our machine, and we're ready to stitch the placement, or the stitch to sew all that together. All right. Now we can remove the tape. And don't forget to remove the tape on the back as well. And we will now be flipping this piece up, taking our small batting, placing it on our hoop, and folding this fabric up and over it, and pull it nice and tight, and we're going to put 2 pins right up at the edge of the hoop. Just like that. We have a couple more things we need to do. This is our loop for the top. You will want to center it, and if your hoop has a little marking, that's usually handy to use. Center it and make sure that the ends of your ribbon are well outside of where the stitching will be. So just put them right at the edge of the hoop, just like that. Another very important step is to open your zipper. You want to open it to about this stitching line right here. It's very important to open it, otherwise once the bag is finished, you'll have no way of opening the bag. So this is going to allow us to flip it right side out when it's finished. Now, we want to take the back fabric for our bag, lay it face down in the hoop, just like this. On top of that goes our remaining piece of batting. And then you want to take a piece of tearaway stabilizer and lay that on top of everything. Now that is optional, but I found that if I don't use it, my presser foot gets caught in the batting. And I'm just going to put a couple pins in the outside of my design, right along the edge of that hoop. And this is what it looks like. So let's put it back on our machine. Okay, we're back, and of course while I was filming this, unbeknownst to me, my phone ran out of memory and just stopped recording. So unfortunately the last step got missed. That last step is that when your design is still in the hoop, you'd turn it over, place the lining over the back, tape it in place, flip it over, put it back on the machine, stitch, and then remove your design from the hoop or your project, and then remove all the pins and then cut around the edge of the design. As you can see here, there is a little gap that is left for turning the project, and you want to leave a little bit of fabric there and then cut around the rest and leave about 1/8 of an inch. You want to cut diagonally across the corners, and then on these little spots right here where the waist is, you want to make some very careful and small snips, and this is going to help it turn more neatly. Just be really careful. Don't do this when you're tired, because you'll end up cutting through the stitching, and that's no good. So now we're ready to flip this around. And this is when we will be using our blunt stick for turning. And there you have it. So we then need to close up this little opening here. And in previous videos, I had recommended using steam-a-seam to close this up because, I don't know about you, but I don't like hand sewing and I like to avoid it whenever possible. Unfortunately, because of the fabric I used, an iron would melt it, so I am going to have to stitch this little opening by hand. And that's no fun for you to watch, so I'm just going to pretend that I did that and then move on to the next step, which before I realized the camera stopped filming, I had already done, and that is to remove the cutaway stabilizer from the zipper area. And you cut that very carefully, and if you do accidentally snip the lining with your scissors, there's a product called Freight Check in most fabric stores. It's in a little clear bottle. It's in the notions section. And just dot that on and it'll stop the lining from fraying. And that will enable you to open up your zipper the rest of the way and flip the design right side out. We're going to grab our little stick again, poke those corners out. And look at that. You're going to have some tape here from when you tape down the ribbon. You want to remove that as well. Look at that. We have a corset bag. Very cool, huh? And our final step is going to be to make the zipper pull. And that is a separate hooping, so I'm going to put that design onto my machine and we'll meet you back here in a few minutes. Okay, now we are going to stitch the zipper pull. I have the design loaded on my machine, and there are only 2 steps to this. The first step is to sew the outline, and I'm actually going to do that one twice. The design calls for a much larger piece of felt than what I'm using here. I like to be a little cheap and use up my scraps, so I'm going to stitch this first stitch and use it as a placement stitch and then do it over again. So we'll see in a minute. Okay, I'm going to place my little scrap of felt over that outline. Use a little bit of tape to hold it down. And then I'm going to back up 1 stitch. So I'm going to do that one over again. Perfect. Now we need to remove your hoop from the machine. And I'm going to cut off that piece of felt, and this is going to go on the back. Cheapskates unite. Before we do that, we need to take our piece of ribbon, and it's best to use probably about maybe an 8-inch piece so you have enough to easily loop it through the little hole in the zipper and turn it. I think I cut mine too short, but I can manage. So we're going to fold this in half, and this is much easier on a flat surface. Have the ends of the ribbon inside of the design, and then tape that down. Just like this. Then we're going to take our other piece of felt and put that over the stitching line. And we need to tape that. And there we are. It's ready to put back on the hoop. And we can do our final stitch. This is basically the same concept as making a feltie, if you've done those before. We're just adding a piece of ribbon. That's it. All right, let's remove it from the machine. And tear away our stabilizer. And then the next thing we need to do is cut around the edges right after we cut all these little bits of thread. Let's get rid of those. All right, now the trick is to not cut your ribbon off. So what you do is you just fold it off to the side and cut 1 layer of felt at a time. Just in that spot. Then do the same thing on the other side. Fold it back. the single layer of felt. Now the rest of it we can cut all at once since there's no ribbon there. There we go. Then all you do is push this through the little hole in the zipper, pull it through, loop this in, pull it, and it's attached. Then you've got a fabulous corset bag. And if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you click the little thumbs up at the underneath the video. And I'd like it even more if you subscribed and left a comment and let me know what you think and what video you'd like to see next. We'll see you soon.